one, Miss Avery, it's a pleasure to meet you. You've been a staple in my house. I think we've watched The Color
I
Purple at
believe
least 100 times.
staple. Yeah, okay.
At least 100 times I've seen this movie. Um, there's so much to it, but I want to find out more about you. When did your career in entertainment start? Did you start as an actress, or did you start in like theater?
I um I started really my career started as a teacher. I was first grade teacher in
Oh
the
wow.
Bay Area. Yeah, I love the kids. Um, when back in the '60s when I went to college, it wasn't anything about. I mean, women of color. I mean, for my socioeconomic group, it was always you either be a teacher or a social worker or or a nurse. You don't
Hmm.
think about going into law or anything else. So I love kids, so I chose teaching, and I taught for about 4 years before getting into making the decision to go to Los Angeles and pursue film. And
Okay.
I was motivated by knowing that Sidney Poitier won the Oscar for Lilies of the Field. And then once I started teaching, it was the lovely Diane Carroll who had a series called Julia. And I said, you know what?
Hmm.
It's going to open up for actors. It's going to open up for people of color. I gotta start thinking about what my passion really is and going after it. And so it was a real decision for me to stop teaching and go to Los Angeles. I really wanted musical comedy, New York, but after visiting New York, it just seemed so fast, and um, I encountered a couple of negative situations. So I thought, well, maybe I should just try for film. Plus, that would be in California. It wouldn't be so cold if I'm a starving actor.
Yeah, that makes sense. Did you find any of your like your teaching training being useful when it came to the entertainment industry?
I think it was not so much my teaching first and second grade. I mean, I did learn a lesson, if you want me to share that with you from the children.
Absolutely.
Well, okay, I was teaching first grade and I chewed out this student. I mean, I really bawled him out. And then later I found out that he wasn't the person the little one I should have been chewing out. And at the end of the day, we always lined up and sang our little song. Good
Hmm.
evening to you, good evening to you. We're all in our places with sunshiny faces. Oh, this is the way to end the new day. And the kids then passed out, went out. And when he passed me, he said, "Have a nice weekend, Miss Avery." And it just, I mean, I don't know how to explain it, but my lesson in that was that he really didn't hold a grudge against me for being wrong. And I think the lesson I learned is that when children know, as parents, when they know that you love and care about them, they forgive you.
Hmm. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I think that that's the thing that so many children who maybe are unfortunate and they have to grow up in the system, and maybe they're stuck with people who are taking care of them just for the money. Um,
Hmm.
it gives them a very hard look on life.
Yeah.
So that was my teaching experience that I
No,
learned
I
for the
love it.
living.
I love it. I think kids are probably the most honest human beings in the world. They tell you when they're hurting, they tell you when they're happy, they tell you when they're sad, they tell you when you hurt their feelings, and you kind of condition them, unfortunately, into what we are as adults, to where they're like
Mm-hmm.
channeling things and compartmentalizing aspects of their lives. So I love kids. I think that they are the most honest person to have a conversation with.
Oh, they are.
Unfortunately.
And you know what? As a parent, you got to be careful because they're watching you. You're not
Yeah,
talking to them, but they're watching you, and they will repeat
absolutely.
what you do. You got to be careful.
Absolutely. So when you get to Hollywood and you do take that diversion away from musical comedy into the acting and like being more of a serious act or serious role actress, did you find that a hard transition, or did you kind of find a way to take what it is that you wanted to do and place it into the characters that you were playing?
Well, let me tell you this. Let me give you a little background. When I was in the Bay Area, I continued to study acting because
Mm,
that was my passion. On the weekends, I was doing acting classes, or I was doing a free play or something. I was also singing, studying voice and singing in little clubs, Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights, and even
mhm.
Sunday. Grading papers in the bathroom of wherever I was working. So when I got to Los Angeles, remember in you, there weren't blacks on television. There weren't
Yeah,
blacks in commercials. And women didn't have credit cards then. We hardly had credit cards. Uh,
yeah,
I mean, there was a lot of stuff going on that's not happening now that we just take for granted. So when I went to Los Angeles, it was like the belief that things were going to open up. And I
hmm,
continued to, I, the way uh, I took care of myself by substituting during the day, teaching, and studying at night. So it was all about believing that the business was and hoping that the business was going to open up. And it
yeah.
did. I mean, I couldn't even get an agent at that time. And the gender differences there, I could hardly even get an apartment as a single woman.
Wow.
That kind of discrimination. I went to a conservative middle class area in Los Angeles trying to get an apartment, and the the man there said, a man of color said, "Oh no, you're just going to be partying, and oh no, I would never rent to you." Then I go to Hollywood, and I'm looking at a dump there. Can't get
Yeah.
in. You got the racism there. Beverly Hills, the racism there. So I stepped out on Los Angeles, not knowing anyone, no relatives there, no friends. Just stepped out with faith and belief in God, and that knowing some kind of way that things were going to open up.
And I,
Got an answering service now that costs $400. Answering service like this big. I'm taking you
mhm.
back.
And it's I think that I think that my generation, I just turned 42. Um I
Black
think
don't
my
crack.
it don't crack. If you use cocoa butter and drink your water, you are good to go. But I think that we take for granted a lot of the opportunities and privileges that we have, because a lot of this stuff was just kind of afforded to us, and we didn't have to experience a lot of that. And then the generation after me really is disconnected from the struggles of what your generation had to deal with.
Mm.
Um, but there's also like that pride of knowing that someone made sacrifices and took strides and steps so that we can have those opportunities. But I don't think that we in our generation thank you all enough for everything that you've had to deal with to make sure that we were in the places that we're in. So
Well,
I
it's not
personally want
just
to
this.
say thank you.
It's not just this generation, but even my generation. I have to think back to Hattie McDaniel and those actors, Lena Horne. She she was a wonderful talent, but did she get her due in acting? in the film. And look who played Cleopatra.
Right.
We didn't have a woman of color playing those roles. So I'm even I stepped out on the shoulders of others. But at the
Yeah.
time, those they weren't around, and they
Yeah.
certainly didn't have. They weren't making anyone else stepping out current at that time. So
Yeah. So when you land and you're in LA, you're going through the process of being in LA, being in Hollywood, going through the racism, finally landing an agent, finally starting to work. Um, what is that like for you at that point? Because a lot of people think of you and think Color Purple as a starting point, but there's like 13, 14 years before Color
20,
Purple,
20,
20
20
years
years.
before that. So there's a lot of work before we get to the iconic movie. So I think the first one that I know about you, I remember seeing you in, was The Fish That Saved Pittsburgh. My dad's a huge
Oh,
basketball
oh,
fan.
but listen, you're missing the black exploitation films. That's how I really got started in film.
I didn't know that.
Remember? I
Well,
mean,
no,
that
because
was
you did one with oh my god, his name is gonna kill me.
Fred Williamson, the
Fred
Hammer.
Williamson.
The Hammer. He
Right.
was a football player, and they called him the Hammer. So we
Yeah.
worked together and other actors, and I mean, but his film, he actually produced that film. So the film that I worked in, I don't know that he was one of the producers, but he wasn't one of the first of the black exploitation films. And we had to do things in one take and pray that we could do another take. Pray that there's a sound problem, some kind of problem that they would have to do do it again. But because I was a trained actor at that time, I could do it in
Mhm.
one take. But you
Yeah.
can do it better if you have another take. And with Color Purple, Steven Spielberg, my God, he went up to 17 takes. Can you believe it?
Wow. And you were
So I
struggling
went
trying to
from
get a second
so
one.
when television did open up, that was still a fast pace. I mean, you could like maybe they would do 2 or 3 takes,
Hmm.
but to have the luxury of 17,
Yeah.
woo!
Yeah. It goes to show the monetary differences between what our films were in that era and what Hollywood's films were in that era, and
Mhm,
the ability to fund a major project and trying to just get your story out to tell your narrative on your own. Like
mhm.
it's a very vast difference when it came to the money put into the movies.
Absolutely, and there's still a big difference. There's still a big difference in how they are uh, marketed in
Hmm.
many ways. The beauty of The Color Purple is that it's not really a black film. I mean, it's considered a black film because it's all black actors, but it's
Hmm.
the theme is universal.
Hmm.
Uh, and I had the privilege of being a part of the marketing for it. My daughter and I, she was with me. We went all over Europe marketing The Color Purple, and I'm telling you, everyone, all the women, regardless of class or culture, they identified with that film.
Yeah. I think what's great about the film is there's a lot of different moving parts, and you can gravitate towards each character, and you're watching everyone grow and mature in their own way, coming from different starting points. I think that is
Hmm.
amazing. And then as I got older, I realized that Mister was a wealthy black man who had land ownership and respect in the community. And I didn't pay attention to that as a kid. I just saw him as the guy in the movie. But it's like to be in that era, to own as much land as he had, have animals, have
Hmm.
farming, have the ability to put money away in a box in the floor of the house, have the big house. there's a lot to that you just really don't comprehend unless you're paying attention to the nuances of the movie. So these
Right.
weren't just like poor black people. These were higher middle upper class black people that had some money behind them that could make moves and open stores and open juke joints and have businesses funded in that era in the South.
Hmm. You're right. I agree. But
So
I think we have a tendency to just look at his behavior as to
right,
opposed to what he had accomplished
right.
as what we might call successful.
Yeah. So when you land on that, you land on that set and you see that you're with a, I guess at the time it is a stellar cast. Now we see them as everyone is like iconic actors and actresses. But when you see this script and you see, you know, what your role is going to be, what's your thought process going into the film and into that reading room?
Well, everybody, first of all, with Alice Walker's book, I mean, we were already in love with the project. We knew that it was a project of love, but it was a challenging personal challenge for each one of us because you figure it was Whoopi's first film. It was
Mhm,
certainly my first film of any really notoriety. Um, it was Oprah's first film. It was
mhm,
Spielberg's first film that he directed with adult uh, uh, a topic, and because everything had been at that point, I think it was Jaws and something else,
mhm.
and I didn't really know how much Danny had accomplished. He had already been doing films. Um, he was my neighbor for a minute, but we won't go into that. But we I think we just knew that this was a very special project, and we went into it all wanting to please Alice Walker.
Mhm.
And it just seemed to me that she was only on the set during the time I had to shoot. So it's like, I was just so nervous after every take. I'm wondering, oh God, I was trying not to look at her, but I'm thinking, I hope she liked that. Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. Nerves. So
Nothing like
what
pressure.
I
And
what
then, of
I what I
course,
love.
go ahead.
Oh, no, you can go. No, I was just saying. I love that she was the author of the book and was still on set to make sure that like the message is being conveyed properly.
Mhm.
Like that's amazing.
And it's so amazing too that the film is still, I mean, her book, the story is still out there. It's a classic, and
Yeah.
and when you think of her and Oprah and Steven Spielberg and Quincy Jones, who peddled the script, and tried to get other people to take over, and Steven Spielberg was the only director of any power that could greenlight it, that agreed to do it. So I mean, people were saying, "Why can't you have a black? Why didn't you have a black directing?" But no, we didn't have Spike Lee's and all
Yeah.
Ava DuVernay's and at that time. So Steven was the only one who agreed to do it, and
Yeah.
I thought he did a great job.
And I've listened to other interviews, watched other interviews, read things about that time frame, and everyone said the level of respect that he had for everyone on set and the environment that he built around the set is probably what allowed everyone to be as transparent and as vulnerable in their roles as they were, because he was pretty much a no nonsense, let's really do the work, let's really tell the story, let's really make sure that the voices of the characters are heard the whole way throughout the movie.
And I might piggyback that on saying that Steven, he was known to go to New York and look at plays, watch actors. He respected actors, and with his direction, he's probably one of the only directors I've worked with who knows how to communicate to an actor as to what he
Mm,
wants. And I used to watch him direct Whoopi, and
mhm.
he, after a take, he'd go up and whisper something in her ear or talk to her, and that next take was like magic. Now,
Yeah.
most directors today, they don't know what the actor's process is in developing a character, and they don't know how to tell you what they want. And they'll
Yeah.
go on and on and on and on and on, and sometimes I'll walk away thinking, now what the frick did he say? I mean, what? And then I just have to go into my training and just say, clear my head and just think the character, be the character, Margaret. Just
Yeah.
forget about all that. Do what you know instinctively to do for this character. And then I go back, do it. Oh yeah, yeah, that's perfect. And I'm thinking, well, thank God I didn't have to listen to you.
I love that. It's I think it's amazing. Like you guys created something um that has been around what almost 40 years now.
What?
Um Color Purple.
Four
So
years?
40.
40. Yeah, yeah, you
Yeah.
got it
So
there. That's right.
so close to 40 years now and is as popular now, if not more popular than it was when it came out. Did
Mm-hmm.
you again because you knew that like the story was a hit because the book was a hit, so you knew this was going to be great. Did you imagine it would be what it is?
Oh, it can't. I mean, how can you mess up that story? I mean, if it's a musical, then the thing that changes is that or that could change it is that music. It's got to have good music, and then you
Yeah.
look at the cast. It's got great vocals. I mean, the vocalists are wonderful. So, what's the failure? And
Yeah.
I did notice that I liked with the musical film they incorporated some of the dialogue from the original film with the dialogue and the stage because the stage had a little bit of different dialogue and they incorporated
Hmm.
the two in appropriate places. And I thought they did a wonderful job with that, as well as many other things they did that was great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes you're so close to something, because I cried twice. Sometimes you're so close to a project, you're wondering, can you be objective? Is everybody else going to love it as much as I love it? Because And so I got to just sit back and just assume that everybody's going to like it,
Yeah.
love it.
So I think was interesting. I had this conversation with my aunt. We do this thing on the holidays where we say like a line from the movie, and you have to figure out like what scene it was and who said it. And like we do this all the time, and we try to make it as hard as possible, but no one ever like really loses because we always figure it out.
Uh-huh.
Um, and it's just because we've watched it that much. But it's what the conversation we ended up having was the film is a drama, and we look at it as a comedy until you start really paying attention to the drama of the movie. And while things are funny, there's a lot of things in there. There's a lot of conversation. Even how young Silly was being married off to Mister. Like
Mm,
she was a
cattle.
child going right, just going into a house to take care of his kids, clean his house, and potentially just make more babies for him if that was the possibility. So it's that the fact that her father molested her and she had a baby by her father and those kids were sent away. There's so many things about the movie that are true dramatic topics, but it's almost geniusly placed around comedic pinpoints so that even though it's hard to kind of have that conversation, it's there. but then there's something there to make it lighter, and then take it back into something serious again. It's an amazing journey through a story. And again, to go from young to older, and how life changed, and like your character
Mhm.
goes from running juke joints to being a successful married woman living in a different a different state now. But it's like you've taken control of your womanhood, and you've taken that power that you used to have to entertain people, and now saying, I'm going to control my life and my journey and my destiny, and I'm now coming back and I'm taking you with me because you deserve the same. It's just, there's
Mm.
so much to the movie that you
There really
appreciate when you
is.
really sit and watch it.
Well, I'm so proud that you picked up all those points. That's great.
It was hard because you try to get past the laughing,
Yeah,
and it's
but
like there's a lot
I
more to
just
it.
I think that it's one of the movies that the more you see it, the more points you're going to recognize. You
Yeah,
know, sometimes you say, "Oh yeah, I didn't realize the other time that I watched it." You know, you can
right,
grow each time.
right, right. So moving from Color Purple, success from that, you go down a list of big name movies that people either recognized you in and was like, I know that face. And
Mm.
I saw you on one of my favorite movies is White Man's Burden, which I love
Oh
that movie. I
no,
love
you that was your favorite? Oh, I was so
no,
disappointed in that favorite. I didn't like the ending at all.
no, I hated the ending. I love the
And I told the producer that. I told him, I said, this is not the ending that no black man is going to get out in the middle of the street with a gun and the police coming.
no, no, unrealistic.
No.
Unrealistic. But it was the, I think, again, the nuances of like switching races and switching characteristics, and saying this is what are trying to
Hmm.
show, this is what black people do, this is what white people do, from different perspectives. And it was just, I think for me at that time, it was interesting that someone would try to show these things and see how that worked. But I was also a Harry Belafonte fan, so I'm a little biased.
Well,
But
you know why I loved working with him, because he was one of the people that inspired me to go into acting. Because the first
mhm,
time I saw him on film was he and Dorothy Dandridge in it wasn't
Carmen.
I think it was Carmen Jones, and I would I would pay go and collect my little Coke bottles and get my 25 cents for the Saturday matinee.
Hmm.
And that was the first time I ever saw a woman of color, skinny like me. And I thought, oh my God, maybe I can be an actor because she's skinny. Because up
Yeah.
until that time, and we didn't have television that long, but in the beginning of television, they showed the movies from the 30s, and the women were always maids, and they were like big women, and I
Hmm.
was like a skinny little wee. So I got to, in that film with Harry Belafonte, I got to just humble myself and say how grateful I was for him to be a part of my inspiration for film.
Yeah.
He and Sidney Poitier.
And I think that's, for me, that's kind of like or I would assume it's one of those moments where it's like I would think that you would think, I've made it to this level, and these people that I admired before I got here, I'm now working beside. Was it that kind of revelation?
Well, certainly, yeah. I mean, but the other part of it, not to lessen what you were saying, but the other part of it is that the inequities in the business of gender. Here,
Hmm.
Harry Belafonte was much older than me, but I'm playing his wife.
Mm.
And that's the thing. It's like, my point is, in the business, the men can be very much old, but the women, I mean, it used to be if you got to 40, oh my God, you're, over the hill. Now I think
Right.
that maybe women are more 50 and 60. But I mean, once you get my age, you're over the hill, forget it. I mean, and men write, most of the scripts are written by men and they write about their experiences and women. But the
Yeah.
man, whenever he's the lead, he's got to have his wife to be 15, 20 years younger.
Yeah.
No, that's that
Yeah.
gender inequity. And so to answer your question, I loved working with Mr. Belafonte. I mean, beautiful human being inside and out. But I also thought about, well, look how much younger I am than he, and
Yeah.
yet I'm playing his wife.
And it's interesting when you say the inequities inside of the industry and what one with the male has against what the female has. It kind of still is that same storyline of The Color Purple. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
the inequities, and you're just supposed to be here and do this, and you're
Mm-hmm.
trying to show that I can do the same things you're doing. I can balance and still be an equal to you, and it doesn't happen until later in life where it's not even equal, is coming up to the point of coming close to being able to have the same respect that you have as a male.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That is
Yep.
wow. Okay, so you get to a place
But
and you
it's about the male ego. You understand
oh
that.
it's always
It's
male ego. It's
Yeah.
always male ego.
Thank you.
It's sad, but it's always men have a thing where we're afraid of being replaced in something that we think that we just have the right to do, and you try to block people from having that same access that you have because you don't want them to be better than you. It's a very like machismo mentality that I personally I
Mm.
cannot stand. But it's men are just we're afraid of the competition. We think that if we let someone get close enough to where we're at, they're going to be better than us and move us out of the way. We have
But
to get
that
past
might
that.
not be just with men. That might be with women too. But but
I
not
think
as
women might share
obvious.
some of that, but yeah, with us it's a very I think it's a very insecure place that men kind of
Absolutely.
reside.
Hmm. Now, don't
Um
edit this part out. That's good for
oh
people
no,
to
that
hear.
stays.
Oh, okay.
That stays. You found your comedic side to come back into your career. You did Roscoe Jenkins, you did Meet the Browns, you did Granddaddy Daycare, and then you did Block Party. So it's like you're bringing that funny side back and working alongside
Mhm.
of comedic actors and actresses and building now like literal laugh reels for us to watch. How does that feel now? Still being able to be on set with these comedic powerhouses and get that same like respect and like give you your flowers. And Monique, I think she said one time when she was working on Roscoe Jenkins, she was just excited to be able to work beside you.
Ah,
and
that's
and
sweet.
she was just saying like the privilege that she has as an actress is being able to work beside iconic actresses. And she was saying how excited she was working with you on Roscoe Jenkins. does it do you feel that from the next generation when you show up on set and are like, oh my god, it's you?
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I remember the first time I started working in Atlanta a lot, and people were saying, "Miss Avery, this," and would you like this, Miss Avery, Miss Avery? And I'm thinking, I'm not that old, am I? And then I looked around, and everybody looks like they're like going into college or something, or just out of high
Yeah.
school. And I said, "Oh, okay, I get it. I'm Miss Avery, all right." But then I started, after I accepted that, I said, "But you know what, Margaret? be proud that they're looking up at you. Be
Yeah.
It's something to be proud of. And so
Yeah.
now I feel really good when people say Miss Avery, and I say, yeah, yeah, Miss Avery still got it going on.
You gotta let them know. You gotta let them know. So to kind of close out, I know how I see you as an actress, and I was explaining that in the beginning of the interview. What is the legacy that you want to leave with people, and what's the messaging you want them to get from your career?
Oh boy, I still think about that one. But I will say this, I'm always thinking about when we of people of color get into a good position and the doors are so hard to get in. I'm always hoping that that person will bring somebody else along with them, because this
Mm,
is the way we continue to grow. This is the way we continue to show the world our talents. Because if we don't help each other, who's going to look out for us?
yeah.
I feel that there's too many times where you might think that a person's thinking, well, I got mine, so you have to get yours. And I see other cultures bringing each other in. Do you realize that at McDonald's, I don't see any people of color anymore?
Yeah.
I don't see in Los Angeles men of color working construction. No more. When the streets are being repaired, I don't see men of color.
Hmm.
So what is that saying about we as a people? And our unemployment rate is higher than anyone else's.
Hmm.
We Maybe we don't, when we hear this thing about, oh, it's only 3% unemployment, but how much unemployment is it with people of color?
Right.
It's more than 3%.
Right.
And we have to do something about that. We have to get out of me, and bringing each other down. I mean, the social media and people are so free to talk negative about people. Let's be more uplifting of each other.
Yeah.
And I hope, as your question is, I guess I'm thinking, I hope I'm known for helping people and uplifting their spirit and believing in themselves and helping each other. Let's not be so selfish.
Yeah. I love that.
I hate it when I hear people downing someone, the film or whatever. Well, do you know what it takes to get a film made? Even a bad one.
Even a
I
bad
mean,
one. It takes a
I mean,
lot.
it's, that's, and we don't have to watch it.
Right.
But they did do something, and I just feel that we've got to be more supportive, and maybe it takes putting more God in our lives.
Yeah. 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 I think that is one. It's extremely important because you have a different grounding. But it's
Hmm.
just we've bought into the societal norms of attacking each other, and it can be something of simple accomplishment. This person did this thing, and we find everything wrong with this achievement that a person made. There has to be something
Hmm.
wrong with it. There has to be a joke. There has to be a meme. There has to be some kind of ridicule, because again, just saying congratulations, great job, wish you the best.
Hmm.
That's too vulnerable now, and it's coming off like I can't praise you for your good work, but I can attack your good work and then completely attack your bad work. So I can go on a defensive against you, but I can't support you and appreciate you and try to lift you up
Hmm.
to be
Hmm.
better. And I think that is it's a sad reality that needs to be shifted. But this was great. I want to thank you so much for taking the time out to talk to me. I really appreciate it. It's
Oh,
always
thank
good to
you.
hear the stories and get better understands what you think you know. So that's always helpful.
I like that. What you think you know.
Yeah, because we don't really know. We think we know a lot. Like you have no idea. So people
That's true.
we think we know you. We don't know you. We have to
That's true.
learn you. And I think that's important.
And the funny thing is, what people don't know, they make up.
Yeah, every day. Every day. And then like, no, yeah, absolutely. That's the truth. It's absolutely true. Like,
Oh,
sure.